Prologue, the final gathering. They say you never truly know your family until you see them at a funeral. On a wet, bone-cold morning in late October, Claire watched as mourners gathered under black umbrellas at the edge of Fairmount Cemetery. Some faces she knew from childhood, others belonged to people who hadn't spoken to her father in years, yet appeared now, hungry for closure, or maybe just gossip. Claire's hands trembled as she gripped the bouquet. She'd spent the last week arranging everything: obituaries, insurance, death certificates, awkward phone calls with distant relatives. But nothing prepared her for the moment when the casket, heavy and rain-slicked, began its slow descent. She tried to listen as the priest recited familiar verses, but her mind spun with memories: her father's laughter, his temper, the years of unspoken distance that yawned wider with every shovelful of dirt. Beside her, Claire's mother stood like stone, lips pressed tight, eyes rimmed red but dry. Behind them, her brother Paul shifted restlessly, checking his watch. The wind carried whispered conversations. "Did you hear about the will? His business was struggling for years. I wonder who gets the house." Claire shut her eyes. All she wanted was peace, a single day without tension, suspicion, or secrets. But even as she tried to mourn, she sensed the undercurrents: old resentments, rivalries, unfinished business rising to the surface. It was only when the last handful of earth hit the coffin with a dull thud that Claire noticed a woman standing apart from the others. The woman's gaze was fixed on Claire, her expression unreadable, a mix of pity, triumph, and something colder. Claire shivered. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to unravel, and the truth would come not from strangers, but from those she'd trusted most. Chapter 1. The Inheritance. The world felt oddly silent after the funeral. The rain had finally stopped, but the Montgomery house, it still felt like her father's, never quite hers, seemed to echo with everything unsaid. Claire set her bag on the kitchen table, the smell of wet leaves clinging to her coat. Her mother disappeared into the den without a word. Paul vanished into his old room, slamming the door behind him. Claire looked around, trying to see the house as a stranger might. The photos on the walls showed a happier family, her parents young and in love, Claire and Paul playing in the yard, birthday parties, Thanksgivings, and distant summers when their laughter had filled every corner. It all felt like it belonged to someone else now. She busied herself cleaning up, throwing away the empty casserole dishes neighbors had brought, wiping up mud tracked in by funeral guests, folding the old Afghan her father always used on cold nights. Anything to keep her hands moving, to avoid thinking about what came next. Paul reappeared, his eyes red-rimmed but defiant. "Are you going to the lawyer's tomorrow?" he asked. Claire nodded. "Mom said we should both be there." He scoffed. "Great. I'm sure Dad left us nothing but headaches." Claire didn't answer. Her father's business had been struggling for years. Everyone knew it, though no one ever said it out loud. The local hardware store he'd inherited from his own father was a relic, holding on in a world of big box chains and online shopping. Claire had tried to help with the books the previous summer, but the debt was overwhelming. She'd never admitted to Paul just how bad it was. She drifted through the rest of the evening, making tea, sorting mail, listening to her mother's quiet footsteps in the den. Sometime after midnight, unable to sleep, Claire wandered into the garage and found herself staring at the old workbench where her father used to fix things. The tools were still neatly hung, the smell of oil and sawdust painfully familiar. For a moment, she let herself cry. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Claire dressed in black slacks and a plain sweater. She couldn't stand the thought of color. Her mother, pale and drawn, joined her wordlessly at the door. Paul waited in the driveway, drumming his fingers on the hood of his car. They drove in silence to the law office in downtown Dayton. The attorney, Mr. Green, greeted them with forced sympathy and a stack of files. They sat around a mahogany table, the air heavy with old carpet and legal dust. Mr. Green cleared his throat. "Your father's will is straightforward," he said. "The house and remaining assets are to be split equally between you two. There are some Outstanding debts, which we'll need to settle from the estate. Paul muttered something under his breath. Claire kept her eyes on her lap. Mr. Green hesitated, then slid a sealed envelope across the table. There's also this. Your father left a personal letter. For you, Claire. She took it, hands shaking. The envelope was thick, the handwriting familiar. She waited until they were back in the car before opening it. Inside was a note and a faded photograph. Her father, younger than she remembered, standing with a group of men outside the hardware store. One man, a stranger to Claire, had his arm around her father's shoulders. On the back of the photo, her father had written, "For the answers you'll need, ask her." Below, in the letter, he'd scrawled a single name, Charlotte. Claire's heart thudded. Charlotte? She racked her memory. The only Charlotte she remembered was her father's business partner from decades ago, a woman who disappeared after some kind of falling out. Paul read over her shoulder. Who the hell is Charlotte? I don't know, Claire lied. The rest of the day was a blur. Signatures, forms, condolences. But the letter burned in her pocket like a live coal. That evening, as Claire wandered the block to clear her head, she saw the same woman from the funeral, the one who had stood apart, watching. The woman was now outside a parked car, speaking into her phone, her eyes briefly meeting Claire's before she turned away. Claire hesitated, then hurried after her. Excuse me, were you at the cemetery yesterday? The woman paused, then nodded. Yes, I'm sorry for your loss. Her voice was calm, even familiar in some distant way. Claire's breath caught. Do I know you? The woman smiled, sad, knowing. Not yet, but you will. She turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Claire on the curb, heart pounding, the letter in her pocket feeling heavier than ever. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The next morning, the world seemed to pulse with a strange anticipation. Claire woke early, sunlight slicing through the blinds and painting patterns on the ceiling. She lay still, feeling the weight of her father's letter pressing into her thoughts. For the answers you'll need, ask her. The words echoed with every heartbeat. She moved through the morning like a ghost. Paul had already left. No note, no breakfast, just a dirty mug in the sink. Claire's mother sat at the kitchen table, robe tightly cinched, staring into cold coffee. They exchanged a few words, empty pleasantries, both avoiding the real conversation. Grief in their house was like a silent fog, thick, suffocating, impossible to cut through. Claire showered, dressed, then finally sat with her phone, staring at the name she'd written on a blank notepad. Charlotte. She tried searching online. Her father's name, the hardware store, Dayton, the 1990s. Nothing definitive, just scattered mentions in ancient business directories and a faded article about local entrepreneurs from 1995. There was a blurry group photo. Claire enlarged it, her father on one end, a woman on the other, sharp-featured, curly dark hair, a confident smile. The phone rang suddenly, jolting Claire from her trance. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? A pause. Then, Claire? I'm sorry to call so early. This is Janet, your father's old neighbor. Claire's mind raced. She hadn't spoken to Janet in years. I'm sorry for your loss, Janet continued. I wanted to let you know. I saw someone around your dad's house last night. A woman. Thought you should know in case it wasn't family. Claire's heart skipped. Did she have dark curly hair? A pause. Yes. Looked like she belonged here. She stood outside for a while, then left. Thank you, Janet, Claire managed. Please let me know if you see her again. After the call, Claire's pulse was racing. Was Charlotte back in town? Why now? And why stand outside the house in the dark? Claire forced herself to eat a little toast, then packed a bag and drove to the local library. She spent the next 3 hours combing through microfiche records, old newspapers, city directories. The library was half empty, Sunlight slanting through dusty windows, the only sound the quiet hum of the microfilm machine. She found another mention, 1997, promising businesswomen shake up Dayton's hardware scene, Charlotte Turner, Margaret Hall, and Henry Montgomery. Her father's name was bolded, but the article focused on Charlotte. Her bold vision, her unconventional strategies, and her rumored falling out with Henry 2 years later. There was a quote from Charlotte herself. "Partnerships are about trust. Once that's broken, it's hard to fix." Claire copied it down, the words prickling her skin. What had happened between her father and Charlotte? Why had her father left this trail, this invitation for her? On the way home, Claire stopped at the hardware store. The closed sign hung in the window, the aisles dark, but she still had the key. The store felt like a mausoleum, each shelf heavy with dust and memory. In the office, she rifled through drawers, old invoices, Polaroids, faded notes. She found a file labeled Turner, 1997, and opened it. Inside were letters, some typed, some handwritten, all signed C. The earliest were professional. Business plans, inventory lists, ideas for expansion. But as the months passed, the tone shifted. Tension crept in. "I know you don't trust me right now, Henry, but I promise. This isn't about the money. They're saying things about me, and I know you're listening. Please talk to me." After all these years, how could you believe I would betray you? Claire felt her chest tighten. The final note was a single sentence, scrawled in anger. "I can't fix what you refuse to see." A door slammed in the back of the store. Claire froze, panic rising. She listened, heart thudding, but the building was silent. Just her nerves. She hurried home, the letters burning in her bag. That night, dinner was tense. Paul showed up late, his clothes rumpled, eyes distant. Their mother picked at her food, barely eating. Claire waited until the dishes were cleared to show Paul the file. He scanned the letters, eyebrows knitting. "This is all before I was old enough to remember. Why would Dad hide this from us?" "I don't know," Claire whispered, "but he wanted me to find Charlotte. I think she's the only one who knows what really happened." Paul's voice was bitter. "Or maybe she's the one who ruined him." They argued late into the night, voices rising, old wounds resurfacing. Paul blaming Claire for leaving town after college, Claire accusing Paul of never growing up, their mother retreating behind a closed bedroom door. When silence finally fell, Claire sat alone with the letters, tracing the loops of Charlotte's handwriting. Who was telling the truth? What secrets had been buried along with her father? As she turned out the light, her phone vibrated. A new email, subject line blank. She opened it, hands shaking. "Sometimes the truth is worse than betrayal. C." Claire stared at the words, a chill running through her. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to learn just how deep the past could reach and how little she truly knew about the people she called family. Chapter 3. The Visitor. The next day, Claire tried to lose herself in routine, sorting through piles of her father's paperwork, answering condolences on social media, paying overdue bills. Every so often, she would catch herself staring at the folder marked Turner, 1997, its contents now spread out on the dining room table, as if the past itself demanded her full attention. Paul had left early, grumbling something about getting out of this mausoleum. Their mother moved quietly from room to room, avoiding Claire's eyes. The house felt heavier with every hour, as if the very walls remembered the things unsaid. Late in the afternoon, as Claire sat hunched over an old tax return, there was a knock at the door. She froze, heart pounding. No one ever visited without texting first, not anymore. For a brief, irrational moment, she wondered if it would be her father, smiling, shaking off the grave as if nothing had happened. Instead, when Claire opened the door, she found herself face to face with the woman from the funeral. Dark, curly hair, sharp features, eyes that seemed to hold both warmth and warning. Charlotte. She looked older than the woman in the old photographs. her confidence tempered by years, her posture careful. For a second, they just stared at each other. "You're Claire," Charlotte said quietly. Claire nodded, unable to find her voice. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, but I thought—" She trailed off, glancing back at the street. "May I come in?" Claire stepped aside. They sat in the kitchen, the same room where her father used to drink his morning coffee. For a few minutes, neither spoke. Charlotte's gaze roamed the walls, taking in the evidence of years gone by. "I'm sorry for your loss," Charlotte said at last. "Thank you," Claire replied, her voice tight. Charlotte hesitated, then placed her hands flat on the table. "I didn't come to cause trouble. I only came because I thought, well, your father would have wanted you to know the truth." Claire's stomach knotted. "What truth?" Charlotte looked out the window, searching for words. "Your father and I were business partners for 10 years. Friends, too. But in 1997, things fell apart. Money went missing. Rumors started. People said I was to blame." Claire remembered the old letters. "They're saying things about me, and I know you're listening." Charlotte went on, her voice lower. "I tried to fight it, Claire. But your father, he started to believe them. He pushed me out. There was no trial, no police, but everyone in town looked at me as if I was guilty. My reputation was ruined. I left Dayton. I haven't been back until now." "Why come back now?" Claire's voice trembled. Charlotte sighed. "Because your father wrote to me last year. He apologized. He said he finally realized he'd been wrong, that someone else had set me up. He begged me to forgive him." Claire's mind reeled. "But who?" Charlotte shook her head. "He never said. He just wrote that the past was catching up with him and that he feared for you and your brother." Claire felt the ground tilt beneath her. For years, her father had carried this guilt, and she had never known. Charlotte glanced down, suddenly shy. "He left me something. A letter and an old key. He said you'd know what to do with them." She reached into her purse and handed Claire a small, battered envelope and a heavy brass key. Claire opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a short note in her father's handwriting. "Claire, if you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage to ask for forgiveness. I hope you'll understand why I kept so many secrets. The key is to the safe deposit box at Oak Street Bank. Inside, you'll find what you need. Don't trust anyone, not even those you love." Claire stared at the words, her heart racing. "Do you know what's in the box?" she asked. Charlotte shook her head. "He never told me, just that it would explain everything." At that moment, Paul stormed into the house. His face flushed with anger when he saw Charlotte. "What is she doing here?" Claire stood, holding out the note and key. "Dad wanted us to find the truth, all of it. We owe him that." Paul snatched the note, reading it in silence. His hands shook. "He never trusted us," Paul spat. "Not really. He died with secrets." Charlotte's expression softened. "He was trying to protect you. He thought he could fix it before it was too late." Paul glared at her. "Or maybe you're just here to get what's left." Charlotte looked wounded but did not reply. Claire placed a hand on her brother's arm. "We have to go to the bank. Tomorrow." Paul hesitated and nodded. That night, as Claire tried to sleep, she replayed every word of the letter, every look on Charlotte's face. She felt the web tightening around her family, the sense that something crucial was just out of reach. In the dark, her phone vibrated again. Another blank email. "The truth will destroy you if you let it. Be careful who you trust." See, Claire lay awake, wondering not for the first time if the real danger wasn't buried in the past, but waiting for her in the present. Chapter 4. The box morning broke with an icy drizzle that painted the Ohio streets in silver and gray. Claire barely slept. She wandered the house at dawn, restless, feeling as if she were sleepwalking through someone else's life. Her mother was already awake, making coffee but not drinking it, while Paul sulked in silence by the window. The key to the safe deposit box weighed heavily in Claire's jacket pocket. The bank on Oak Street was an old building, the kind with thick stone walls and brass fixtures, exuding a faded sense of authority. Claire, Paul, and Charlotte entered together, an uneasy trio, drawing curious looks from the tellers as they approached. "We're here about Henry Montgomery's safe deposit box," Claire told the manager, showing her ID and the key. The manager nodded, checked some paperwork, and led them through a locked door to a small, windowless room lined with steel boxes. Claire's hands trembled as she inserted the key and twisted. The lock turned with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Inside the box was a folder, a slim jewelry box, and a yellowed envelope. Paul grabbed the folder immediately, flipping through its contents. Old deeds, loan agreements, and, at the bottom, a stack of faded photographs. Most were family pictures. Their father at the store, their mother holding baby Paul, one of Claire as a toddler perched on Charlotte's lap. Charlotte flinched as she saw the image. "I remember that day," she whispered. "Your father said, 'Family is what you build, not just what you're born into.'" She reached out to touch the photograph, then pulled back. Claire opened the jewelry box next. Inside was a simple gold ring, old, probably a family heirloom. Taped beneath it was a folded slip of paper with the bank account number and a single word, "Forgiveness." Paul snorted. "He left us a ring and a bunch of debts. Wonderful." Claire ignored him and turned to the envelope. Inside was a long letter in her father's careful handwriting. She read aloud, "To my children. If you're reading this, it means you're searching for answers. I failed you by keeping secrets, but I was trying to protect you from pain, from shame, from repeating my mistakes. Years ago, someone close to me betrayed my trust. In my pride and anger, I pushed away the people who mattered most, Charlotte, your mother, even you two, in ways you may never understand. The truth is, I was too weak to confront the real enemy. I let suspicion poison everything I loved. If you wish to know who was truly at fault, you'll have to look beyond old stories and rumors. Ask yourselves, who benefited from our family's misery? I beg you, let forgiveness guide you, not revenge. The ring was my mother's. I hope it reminds you that love can outlast even the deepest wounds." Dad Claire finished reading and looked up. Paul was pale, his lips pressed in a thin line. Charlotte wiped a tear from her cheek. Paul slammed the folder shut. "So he tells us to forgive, but doesn't." Chapter 5. Old Wounds. Paul stormed out of the bank's little conference room, slamming the door so hard that the manager came running down the hall. Charlotte quietly apologized, promising it was nothing, just family business. The manager didn't look convinced. Claire followed Paul outside. Cold wind whipped along Oak Street, rattling the last brown leaves on the sidewalk. She caught up with him near the parking lot, his jaw clenched, fists shoved in his jacket pockets. "Paul, wait!" she called. He turned, face flushed with anger. He spends his whole life keeping secrets, and when he finally gives us a clue, it's just riddles and more guilt. Forgive, forgive, forgive. I'm so sick of it. Claire's voice was low, pleading. He was afraid, Paul. He wanted to protect us. You heard the letter. There's more to this. Someone close to him betrayed us all, but he couldn't say who. Paul shook his head. Or maybe he didn't want to admit it was his own fault. He spat the words like poison, shoulders hunched against the chill. Maybe he just couldn't face what he did to us, or what he let happen. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. A delivery truck rumbled past, spraying icy puddles onto the curb. Finally, Claire said, "We have to find out the truth. For his sake, and for ours. Otherwise, we'll spend the rest of our lives fighting over ghosts." Paul let out a bitter laugh. "What if the truth is worse than what we already know?" Claire swallowed. "Then at least it's the truth." They drove home in silence, Charlotte trailing them in her own car. At the house, their mother sat in the living room staring at a muted TV. The ring from the bank box lay in Claire's palm, warm from her touch, its gold surface worn smooth by generations. Claire sat beside her mother, showing her the letter and the ring. For a moment, she thought her mother wouldn't react. But then the older woman's hand trembled as she reached for the ring. "Your grandmother wore this every day after your grandfather died," she whispered. She said it reminded her that forgiveness was a choice, not a feeling. I never really understood what she meant. Until now. Claire's heart ached. "Do you know who Dad was talking about? The one who betrayed him?" Her mother shook her head. "I have guesses, but no proof. Your father, he stopped talking about the past a long time ago. It was as if the pain had fossilized, hard and untouchable." Charlotte waited in the hallway, awkward but patient. Eventually, Claire joined her. "Thank you for coming," Claire said softly. "I know it wasn't easy." Charlotte's eyes glistened. "Your father hurt me, Claire, but I forgave him because I had to, not because he deserved it. It was the only way I could move on. You're stronger than you think." The doorbell rang, sharp and urgent. Paul answered. A middle-aged man in a suit stood on the porch, official-looking papers in hand. "I'm looking for the heirs of Henry Montgomery," he announced. "My name is Roger Mills. I represent a creditor who claims substantial debt against the estate." Paul's eyes widened. "Debt? What kind of debt?" Mills handed over a thick folder. "Your father took out a line of credit 20 years ago. Collateral was the hardware store and—" he hesitated, "the family home." Claire's stomach dropped. "Are you saying we could lose the house?" Mills nodded, eyes not unkind. "If the debt isn't settled within 90 days, foreclosure proceedings will begin." A cold hush fell over the room. After the lawyer left, Paul exploded. "This is just perfect. Not only did Dad leave us his mess, he left us homeless." Their mother started to cry, silent tears running down her cheeks. Charlotte stood awkwardly near the doorway, as if she wanted to comfort them but didn't dare. Claire clenched her fists, refusing to be defeated. "We're not giving up. There has to be a way out. Maybe the truth about what happened can help us, if only we can find it." Paul scoffed, wiping his eyes angrily. "What, you think unmasking some ancient family traitor is going to fix everything?" Claire held his gaze. "Number. But at least we'll know who did this to us. Maybe that's the first step to moving forward." Night fell hard and fast. Claire found herself wandering through the darkened house, touching old photos, feeling the cracks in the walls, literal and emotional. The home that had once felt so safe now seemed fragile, temporary. She drifted into the kitchen, where Charlotte sat alone, leafing through the family photographs from the bank box. Charlotte looked up, her voice raw. "I always thought if I ever came back here, I'd find closure. Instead, all I feel is regret." Claire sat across from her. "You deserved better. I'm sorry for what my father put you through." Charlotte shook her head. "We all make choices. The hard part is living with them." Outside, wind battered the windows. Somewhere down the street, a siren wailed, echoing through the night. Just as Claire was about to go upstairs, her phone chimed. Another anonymous email, no subject line. This one was different. An attachment. She hesitated, then clicked it open. It was an audio file, a distorted recording of two voices arguing. She recognized her father's voice, and a woman's, sharp with anger. The words were muffled, but one line cut through clear as glass. "If they ever find out what you did, it'll destroy all of us." The file ended with a click. Claire stared at the screen, heart pounding. Someone was playing with them. Someone who knew exactly how to hurt. Chapter 6. Secrets Never Sleep. Claire barely slept that night. The words from the recording looped in her mind. "If they ever find out what you did, it'll destroy all of us." She tried to match the woman's voice to someone she knew, her mother, Charlotte, an aunt, even herself. The fear in her father's tone unsettled her most of all. At dawn, the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the hallway clock. Claire paced the living room, listening for any sign that her mother or Paul had slept any better. Through the window, the world was washed in a cold, gray light. Everything felt unreal. Paul came down the stairs, eyes puffy. He avoided Claire's gaze. "We need to talk to Mom," he muttered. They found their mother in the kitchen, clutching a cup of tea. Her hands shook. "Mom," Claire began gently, "did you know Dad took out a second mortgage on the house?" Her mother flinched as if slapped. "I knew about the loan, but he promised he'd pay it back. He never said it could cost us everything." Paul's voice was sharp. "Did you know about the fight with Charlotte?" She hesitated. "I knew something happened. I heard them shouting once late at night. After that, your father was never the same. He barely spoke to Charlotte again." Claire drew a deep breath. "There's more. We found a recording. Dad arguing with a woman. About a secret. Do you know who it could be?" Her mother's eyes flickered. For a moment, she looked older than ever. Secrets were everywhere in this family. Some weren't meant to come out. Paul slammed his hand on the table. "We could lose everything, and you're still hiding things?" Tears glistened in her mother's eyes. "You don't understand. There are things you can't undo, things that, if you knew, would break you. Some mistakes were made out of love, others out of desperation." The words hung in the air. Claire realized with a kind of grief that her mother was protecting something, or someone. The day blurred by. Paul drove off to clear his head. Their mother retreated to her room. Charlotte, after a brief conversation, left for her hotel. Claire was alone in the house, surrounded by the debris of too many secrets. Desperate for clarity, she played the recording again and again. The audio was old, grainy. She recognized a faint echo like it was recorded in the garage. Suddenly, she remembered a night, years ago, when she'd been woken by shouting, "Dayton, 1997. Claire, age 13, crept down the stairs. Her parents' voices raged in the garage, muffled but angry. "I can't believe you'd trust her over your own family," her mother shouted. Her father's voice was weary. "Charlotte is not the enemy. We're being lied to. Can't you see?" Her mother's voice trembled with anger, and something else like fear. "You're too blind to see who's really hurting us." A crash, a tool hitting the cement. Claire froze, heart pounding. She'd never heard her parents like this. When the garage door finally opened, her father stormed out, face white. Her mother stayed inside, shoulders shaking. Back in the present, Claire realized she'd never asked what that fight had really been about, or who had started it. Determined, Claire drove to the hardware store. She found the garage door unlocked, the security light flickering. She went inside, searching for anything she'd missed. Near the workbench, hidden behind a stack of old paint cans, she found a battered cassette tape labeled 1997. She took it home and rummaged through her father's things until she found an old tape recorder. The sound quality was terrible, but the voices were unmistakable. Her father and her mother arguing. The same fight from her memory. But then, a third voice. Charlotte's, urgent and frightened. "Stop it. You're being manipulated. Someone wants us to fight." Her mother snapped. "I know who you are. I know what you did." Charlotte pleading. "You're making a mistake. Please listen to me." The tape ended with a harsh click. Claire sat in the silent kitchen, piecing together the timeline. The fight hadn't just been between her parents. It was a triangle Charlotte caught between them. Just then, the doorbell rang. Paul stood on the porch, his face ashen. "I went to see Mr. Green, the lawyer. He said someone else was asking questions about Dad's estate, someone using a fake name. He thinks we're being watched." A cold chill ran through Claire. "Who?" Paul shook his head. "He wouldn't say, but he's worried. He said, 'Be careful.'" That night, Claire stared out her bedroom window at the empty street. Shadows flickered under the streetlights. The past was alive in their house, whispering through the walls. Someone wanted the truth buried forever, and someone else, she realized, would do anything to keep it hidden. Chapter 7. The web tightens. For the next 2 days, the Montgomery house became a fortress of silence. Claire avoided everyone, moving quietly from room to room, as if afraid the walls might overhear her thoughts. Her mother barely left her bedroom. Paul spent hours at the bar down the road, coming home late and angry, slamming doors, muttering about ruined lives and lies on top of lies. Even Charlotte had retreated to her hotel, sending only a single message. "Let me know if you need anything." "I'm sorry for everything." At night, Claire wandered the house, sleep evading her. She started to feel like a ghost in her own childhood home, haunted not by spirits, but by memory and suspicion. Every creak of the floor, every shadow behind a half-open door made her wonder who else was hiding secrets in this place. She spent hours with the family documents, tracing signatures on old contracts and checks, comparing them to the handwriting in the mysterious letters. One afternoon, she took the cassette tape to a friend from high school, Sam, who worked as a sound engineer in Dayton. In his cramped, cluttered studio, they listened together. Sam cleaning up the audio, replaying sections, isolating background noises. After an hour, Sam paused. "There's another voice on here, really faint. Listen to this, right after Charlotte pleads for them to stop." He played the section. A low male voice, barely audible. "She'll never find out as long as you keep your mouth shut." Claire felt chills run down her spine. "Is that my dad?" Sam shrugged. "It's someone older. Maybe, but it sounds different. Tired, like he's trying not to be heard. There's also static, like it was copied or recorded over more than once." Claire left with the digital copy, her nerves raw. At home, she tried to play the message for Paul, but he waved her away. "Why are you obsessing over this?" he snapped. "The past is dead. We have real problems, like losing our house and our lives." Claire bit back tears. The past is the only way to understand what's happening to us now. Paul threw up his hands. "Suit yourself." He left again, the door echoing through the empty house. Desperate for answers, Claire turned to the old family photo albums. As she flipped through them, a slip of paper fell out, an old receipt for storage unit rental, dated July 1998, paid in cash, signed by her father. The address was on the outskirts of town. It was almost midnight, but Claire grabbed her coat and keys. The air outside was sharp, filled with the scent of distant rain. The storage facility was deserted. Using the number on the receipt, she found the unit, a rusty door, padlocked. But her father's old keys, still on the ring she carried, fit perfectly. Inside, the single light flickered on, revealing boxes stacked high, old tools, crates, and a battered suitcase. Claire opened it and found more photographs. Her father with Charlotte, with another woman she didn't recognize, and with her mother, always a shadow of distance between them. Letters, some unsigned, others initialed M newspaper clippings about a fire at the hardware store in 1999, a fire Claire barely remembered, but which had closed the shop for months. At the bottom, a child's bracelet, hers, lost decades ago. As she sifted through the papers, she found a sealed envelope addressed simply to Claire. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, her father's handwriting. "I wish I'd told you everything. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone wanted to destroy us, and I let fear blind me to the truth. If you're reading this, you're close. The person behind all of it is someone you love. Don't make my mistake. Don't turn your back on family, even when it hurts. I'm sorry." Dad Claire sat on the cold concrete, fighting tears. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Be careful who you trust. You're not alone tonight." Claire dropped the envelope, scanning the darkness outside the storage unit. Was someone watching? Was the enemy closer than she ever imagined? As she locked the unit, thunder rolled over Dayton, and she realized there was no going back. Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. The following morning, Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at her father's final letter. Dawn filtered weakly through the window, drawing pale patterns on the battered table. The words, "The person behind all of it is someone you love," gnawed at her, refusing to let go. Her phone buzzed again, a new message, this time from Charlotte. "I'm at the diner by the highway. Please come. There's something you need to know." Claire hesitated, but the weight of secrets was suffocating. She grabbed her coat and left, the air outside crisp and metallic, sky choked with gray Ohio clouds. As she drove, her mind replayed every conversation, every argument, every glance exchanged in the shadowy corners of her family's life. At the diner, Charlotte looked exhausted, her hair pulled back, fingers twisting a paper napkin. "I'm sorry for dragging you out here," Charlotte began, eyes red-rimmed, "but I can't keep this to myself anymore. Last night I saw someone near your house, a woman. I recognized her. It was your mother." Claire's breath caught. What was she doing? She was talking on the phone, pacing up and down. "I overheard a little," she said. "I warned him. If she keeps digging, it's over for all of us." A chill swept over Claire. "You're sure?" Charlotte nodded. "I know what I heard. I think your mother is hiding more than you realize." Back home, Claire found her mother in the living room, lost in thought, clutching her wedding ring. Claire sat across from her, heart pounding. "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. About Dad, about the store, about the fire." For a long moment, her mother stared at the floor. Finally, she spoke, voice barely a whisper. "I wanted to keep this family together. Your father, he was stubborn, proud. He trusted the wrong people. After the fire, everything changed. We lost more than the store that night." "Who set the fire?" Claire pressed, afraid of the answer. Her mother's eyes shimmered with tears. "I didn't know for certain. I thought it might have been Charlotte. We argued. Your father accused me of jealousy, of trying to ruin his friendships. But I just wanted to protect you, Paul, and him. The debts, the lies. It all spiraled out of control." Claire remembered the old letter. "Don't trust anyone, not even those you love." Her mother wiped her eyes. "But the truth is, I never had proof. I wanted to believe it was an outsider, but what if it was someone closer? Your father stopped talking to me after that fight. There were things about the business, about money I never understood." Paul burst into the room, wild-eyed. "I found more. Look, these emails, they're all from the same server. Someone's been watching us for years, feeding lies, threats, warnings." He handed Claire a printout. Anonymous tips sent to the police, accusations about the fire, notes about unfit parenting, even threats about the children's safety. Suddenly, Charlotte called, voice urgent. "Claire, I just checked out of my hotel. Someone broke into my room. All my papers, gone. Someone wants to erase everything." A wave of dread passed through Claire. The web was closing in, tighter than ever. That night, Claire barely slept. At 3 a.m, she heard movement downstairs. Soft footsteps, a creak of floorboards. She crept to the stairs, heart pounding. She saw her mother in the kitchen, clutching a photo in one hand, a phone in the other. Her shoulders shook as she whispered into the phone, "I did what I had to do. Please, just leave my children out of this." Claire stepped into the kitchen, her voice trembling. "Who are you talking to?" Her mother froze, tears streaming down her face. "You shouldn't be up. This isn't your burden." "It is now," Claire said, forcing her voice steady. "Tell me everything." Her mother's mask finally broke. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "After the fire, I was desperate. I made mistakes, trusted the wrong people. Someone offered to take care of our problems if I kept quiet. I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was make it worse. I let them into our lives, and now I can't get them out." Claire knelt beside her, torn between anger and pity. "Who was it, Mom? Who are you protecting?" Her mother just shook her head, as if the answer was too dangerous to speak. At that moment, Paul ran in, breathless, waving another letter. "Claire, you have to see this. Someone's threatening to burn down the house. Tonight." Claire looked at her mother, realization dawning. The past wasn't just haunting them, it was ready to destroy everything, one last time. Chapter 9. Blind Spots. Thunder rattled the windows as midnight approached. The Montgomery home seemed to shrink under the weight of storm clouds and dread. Claire, Paul, and their mother moved quietly from room to room, double-checking locks, closing blinds, and switching off every light but one in the front hall. Each shadow seemed to pulse with threat. Charlotte called again, voice shaking. "Stay alert. I saw a car idling down your block. Please don't go outside unless you have to." Paul, clutching the threatening letter, paced the living room. "Should we call the police?" Claire hesitated, remembering the anonymous tips, the manipulations, the way their family secrets had already been weaponized. Whoever's behind this, they want us to panic, to turn on each other. Maybe that's how it started all those years ago. Her mother sat rigid in her chair, staring at her trembling hands. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered. A flash of lightning illuminated the kitchen, and for a split second Claire saw her mother's face contorted in a mix of terror and guilt. They gathered in the living room. The house was silent except for the rain and the occasional crack of thunder. Outside, a car engine revved and faded away. Suddenly, there was a loud bang at the back door. Paul jumped, grabbing a heavy flashlight. "Stay here." Claire followed, her heart in her throat. Paul threw open the back door, nothing but rain. But on the porch lay a scorched envelope. Claire picked it up, her fingers shaking, and tore it open. Inside was a single photo, her father, standing arm in arm with a woman, her mother. Behind them, in the blurred background, the old hardware store was in flames, scrawled across the photo in thick red marker. Some secrets should have stayed buried. Paul stared at the photo, pale and silent. Their mother moaned, covering her mouth. "I told him not to trust her. I told him—" Claire looked at her, voice barely steady. "You mean Charlotte?" Her mother nodded, sobs racking her body. "She knew things, about the business, about us. After the fire, your father changed. He was terrified someone would come after you. That's why he hid so much." Paul's voice was raw. "So who threatened us tonight? Who sent the letter?" A loud crash echoed from the basement. Claire and Paul rushed down, flashlights cutting through the dark. The window had been shattered, rain and glass everywhere. In the corner, a shadow moved. Claire's breath caught. "Who's there?" she shouted. The shadow resolved into a figure, Charlotte soaked and shaking. "I had to get in," she gasped. "Someone's after me. I thought I'd be safe here." Paul stared at her, torn between suspicion and fear. "Why? Who's after you?" Charlotte's voice broke. "I don't know who exactly, but after the fire, someone started following me, watching, threatening. I thought I'd left it all behind. But then your father's letters started again, and I knew it wasn't over." They heard another crash upstairs, a window this time, then the shriek of the burglar alarm. The family huddled together, Charlotte crouched beside them. In the confusion, their mother blurted out, "It's my fault. I made the deal. I thought I was saving us, but I doomed us all." Paul grabbed her arm. "What deal? With whom?" Their mother shook her head, sobbing. "A man came after the fire. Said he'd erase our debts if I helped him, if I kept quiet about what happened that night. I was desperate. I agreed," Claire pressed. "Who was he? What did he want?" "He wanted the store, the land. He said if I told anyone, he'd hurt you." Thunder boomed as the house shook. Claire realized with a sickening clarity that their family had been pawns in someone else's game for decades. The true enemy was faceless, hidden, operating in the background, manipulating every move. Suddenly, headlights swept the driveway. A car skidded to a halt, doors slammed. A moment later, the police burst in, summoned by the alarm, weapons drawn. "Everyone down, hands visible." They obeyed, chaos swirling. As the police took statements, Claire noticed one officer, tall with cold gray eyes, watching her mother closely. After the officers left, the family regrouped, shaken. Claire sat on the stairs, clutching the scorched photo. Charlotte wiped blood from a cut on her hand. Paul leaned against the wall, defeated. "What do we do now? The house isn't safe. Someone's still out there." Claire looked at the rain streaming down the window. The night wasn't over, and the truth was still out there, just out of reach. Her phone vibrated. A final anonymous message appeared on the screen. "You still don't see me, but I see you. I always have." Claire felt the last walls inside her crumble. The person who had destroyed her family was still out there, closer than ever. Chapter 10. The Edge of Forgiveness. Morning dawned grim and bruised. The police had left before sunrise, but the Montgomery house still felt like a crime scene. Shattered glass in the basement, muddy footprints by the back door, the bitter smell of fear in every corner. No one slept. Claire moved through the house in a trance, clutching her father's last letter, her hands raw and shaking. Paul slumped at the kitchen table, eyes hollow, mumbling about the anonymous threats, the house, the future. Their mother sat nearby, pale and exhausted, her hands clasped in her lap as if in silent prayer. Charlotte lingered by the window, watching the gray street for any sign of danger. Claire broke the silence. "We can't hide anymore. Whoever is behind this, they want us broken and afraid. I'm done running." Paul slammed his fist on the table. "What do you want us to do? Wait for them to burn the house down?" Claire shook her head. "We fight back, with the truth. No more secrets." Her mother's voice was weak. "You don't know what you're risking." Charlotte spoke, her voice steady despite her fatigue. "It's time, Mary. You have to tell them everything." For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. Mary, Claire's mother, broke. She began to speak, her voice trembling, the dam finally bursting. "I tried to save you all. When your father's business collapsed, I was desperate. I borrowed money from the wrong people I didn't even know. They wanted the store, the land, everything. After the fire, they threatened me. Keep quiet or lose my family. I agreed. I told them whatever they wanted. That's why I blamed Charlotte. It was easier than admitting what I'd done." She sobbed, face in her hands. Claire knelt beside her, unsure whether to comfort or condemn. Paul sat back, staring at the wall. "So all these years, we were pawns." Mary nodded, broken. A car screeched outside. The same gray-eyed police officer from last night appeared at the door, flanked by 2 detectives. "Claire Montgomery?" he called. She stood, defiant. "We need you all to come with us to the station," he said. "There's been a development." They rode in silence. At the police station, the family was separated for questioning. Claire sat under harsh fluorescent lights as the officer explained. "We identified the man who's been threatening you. He goes by several aliases. His real name is Marcus Hall. He was your father's silent partner. When the business collapsed, he tried to force a takeover. When your father refused, Hall set the fire, then used your mother's desperation to control the family for decades. He's behind the blackmail, the threats, the break-in last night. We have him in custody." Claire's breath caught. "All this time?" The officer nodded. "But there's more. We recovered a journal from Hall's apartment. He kept records of everything, payments, threats, even the anonymous emails. He manipulated your mother, your father, Charlotte, everyone." They released the family. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air felt cleansed, almost gentle. At home, Paul sat at the kitchen table, hands shaking. "It's over," he whispered. Claire wanted to believe it, but the scars ran deep. She found her mother in the garden, sitting among the battered autumn flowers. Claire sat beside her. "I don't know how to forgive you," she said, "but I want to try." Mary took her hand, tears in her eyes. "I understand." Charlotte packed her bag to leave, pausing at the front door. "Forgiveness isn't easy, Claire, but if you can find it, you'll be free." Paul joined them, his expression softer than it had been in weeks. "We'll make it," he said. "Somehow." As the sun finally broke through the clouds, Claire stood on the porch, breathing in the clean, cold air. The past could never be erased. The wounds would remain. But for the first time, she felt something like hope. Inside, she placed her father's letter and the old ring on the mantel, symbols of all that was lost and all that could still be rebuilt. Her phone buzzed. One last message. "You did it. The rest is up to you." Claire smiled through tears. She had survived the storm. Now, at last, she could begin again.